Hi again everyone, how you doing? Hope you're keeping well. Thank you everyone for your positive comments on my last video. For your support, it means a great deal to me. We are going to go ahead as intended and look at what I would describe, just my definition, you understand, not categorical, but what I would describe as a White Dwarf from the golden age of Games Workshop. And we're going to take our proper time over this. We're going to go through it. We're going to look at all the wonderful stuff that's inside. But two things, okay? As mentioned in my last video, I have to do this now because of the time of year and the impending gloomy evenings, or the already here gloomy evenings. I have to do this at a weekend when hopefully there is enough daylight for me to do this without having to put lights on and get glare on the magazine and all the rest. Well, as you can probably tell, not an awful lot of daylight this weekend because it's a bit miserable and rainy and minging and very autumnal. So we're going to do our best under the lighting that has been provided for me. The second thing is, I mentioned last time that my desk and my studio are rather awash with things. So I'm going to have to tidy up before we do anything. So I'm just going to kind of adjust a little bit so that you can see what I'm dealing with. There's some stuff here. At the back here I've got a bunch of new sculpts that I'm doing. These are the new sculpts that will come with the Woods 3rd edition boxed set. So I'm working on those at present. And to be working on those, there's a load of sculpting tools kicking around here. I've got my concept art here, and there's a bunch of video reference over there as well. So I need to move that lot out of the way whilst not losing anything, trying to keep it all in together. I've got some of my previous pixies that I'm using for kind of scale reference, so they can go out of the way. I have got some more sculpts here. So these are the Wolf Occult sculpts that I'm starting for the starter box. So I need to move those out of the way. And as a kind of scale reference, inspiration for working on those, I have also got some Keltos figures here. The Keltos range, one of my favourite miniatures ranges, so I wanted them to be sort of semi-compatible, at least with those. So I've got those kicking around. This guy's from Chronopia, but sort of similar kind of look to him. These are also Chronopia miniatures, I think Maidens of the Blade. So I've got those kicking around, and then kind of semi-related, but tangentially, I've got a bunch of Viking figures here. Some of these are Bronze Age miniatures from, I got these via Fenris Games, the UK importer, and some of these are Foundry Norse or Foundry Vikings. I'm doing these for a game that a mate of mine is putting on in a Viking longhouse in November. So these have sat here in a kind of half painted state for a month or so. I really need to crack on and get those finished with, but other things have kind of overtaken them. So yeah, I need to get back to those. I find painting stuff that I've started half painting already, picking it back up again after a break, I find really hard. So that I'm gonna have to sort of challenge myself to do that. So that stuff needs to move out of the way. To avoid doing this in previous videos, I have recorded downstairs, as you will no doubt be aware, but downstairs being way darker than up here today, I don't think that would be very successful either. Some super glue. There's some weapons here, some precast weapons that I'm using. My two Arthur figures for the starter set, the Wolf Occult, and then I'm doing some regular to Arthur as well. I cast up a bunch of human sort of sized scale dollies that I'm working over the top of, and also cast up some weapons as well. It's a fairly standard miniature company practice to cast dollies and cast weapons so that you're not recreating everything from scratch every time. It saves a lot of time and effort. I have, of course, here a load of brushes from painting miniatures, so they need to go over to one side. Shall I put them in? I've got a brush pot over there, but I'm going to want these again sometime soon, hopefully, to finish off my Viking, so I'm just going to pop them out the way over here. Some paint water. The back here I've also got some of my goblins that I'm working on paint jobs of. That's some basing material. This is a list of all of the things that I have to sculpt for the new edition of the Words. Loads more sculpting tools. An owl. I'm not quite sure why there's an owl there, but there is an owl there. More armature wire and things can get out of the way. So my sculpting putties can get out of the way. Brian Froud's Field Guide to Goblins. Excellent reference material, of course, for sculpting and painting goblins. Bags of sample tokens from when we were playtesting 3rd edition of the Woods. That can go out the way over here. Let me very carefully move my sculpts out the way. They are on a test mold, so a mold blank, or at least a mold that I'm no longer using for the contents of the mold, which I keep handy just for checking how many sculpts will fit in said mold for when I send them off for casting. Get that out the way. Some more reference and spare camera batteries, and we've got some clear space. So let us use said clear space. I shall set up again, and we shall use clear space for looking at this White Dwarf. Let's have a go. Okay, here we are. This is White Dwarf 154. This is October 1992. Yes, 1992. Though, of course, the middle of our decades. Edited by the legendary Robin Jews, who did such a grand job. Just let me try and get rid of the shadow of the microphone there. Yes, Robin Jews, who did such good work in turning White Dwarf into an in-house magazine for White Dwarf, but not just a figure catalogue, keeping it a hobby magazine and inspiring people to get modelling and making magnificent things like this spectacular Wizard's Tower that we're going to look at a bit later on in the issue. The Chaos Roadshow is on the road on Saturday the 10th of October 1992, the day after my 8th birthday. There you go. The Chaos Roadshow will be at the Nottingham store. I wasn't there, of course. Gary Morley is joining White Dwarf at this point, so we'll see some of Gary Morley's first miniatures for Games Workshop, that fairly iconic, shall we say, notorious undead range coming out very soon. And here's a cardboard building that we can look forward to in the next edition of White Dwarf. Speaking of which, let's look at some cardboard buildings by Adrian Wild. Adrian, who of course produced some of these extremely recognisable buildings here. This, the Warhammer Inn, of course, which we're going to see a bunch more of later in this issue, featured in so many of the photographs. The townhouses, some of which are in the cabinets at Foundry. This tower the watchtower, which with and without its removable roof, featured in a lot of the photographs at the time, and some lesser known ones. This watermill here, I don't remember seeing all that frequently in. Sorry, I'm just trying to adjust the light so that you can see. Yes, photography or filming videos in the winter, never an easy thing. There we go. That's probably about as best as I can manage it. Yes, never an easy thing, unfortunately. But you know, this is still amateur YouTube hour, so we're okay. And this is just going to take us through building some basic cardboard buildings from basic shapes. And you can use balsa wood, and you can use foam core, which is what Adrian has been using for most of these things. And he's talking about applying cladding to them and applying texture to them and building chimneys and doing tiles and little hanging plaques and all the things, all the little features that make these buildings so interesting. There's that watermill with its really cool water flow through here, through the river system. Really quite nice looking. Adds a bit of animation to an otherwise static building. And then talking a little bit about building in different styles for 40k and epic, and different scales for epic here, using parts from elsewhere in the Citadel range. We have, of course, the brand new at this point Warhammer boxed set, which has cardboard buildings and the cardboard standees, and a host of this generation's very recognisable monopose plastic troop types, but which allowed them to put 104 miniatures into the box game. You know, that's inspiring, certainly for a child of the age that I was when I first came across the 4th edition box set. 104 miniatures. I mean, I'm looking at putting a box set together for the Woods, and yes, they won't be in plastic because I can't work in the same scale that Games Workshop were able to manage at this time. But you know, I'm looking at putting 20 figures in. I couldn't even consider putting 100. You don't need them for a skirmish game, but for something of this size, 100 miniatures. That's a good looking starter boxed set. And there's a few things here as well that are different. So like this flame template here is of a different design to the one that came out eventually. This tower, I think, is actually slightly different in its looks, and it's got kind of clear white card on the inside. So this is a mock-up. I think that probably they had the plastics at this point, maybe waiting on the card stock. So this is one of those contents may vary from what's depicted here. And if you want to check that out for yourself, you can enter the mega prize draw and win one of every Games Workshop game, book and Citadel miniature box set currently in stock, which is a pretty significant prize, right? By filling out this customer survey. Here are some of those metal high elves that I don't really know if anyone bought. Maybe the command groups. Did anyone buy the metal archers and the spearmen? Probably not. You'll find they're one of those rare things to try and pick up on eBay these days, because people didn't buy them because they had the plastics, and these were basically the same sculpts as the plastics with a few extra features. But if you had all of those plastics, why would you go to the expense of buying metal ones? We are still in the era of Rogue Trader. Here's 40k Rogue Trader looking at the Ultramarines. That standard codex chapter by Alan Merritt, who doesn't get a lot of credit for articles in White Dwarf. I guess most of his credit is as the kind of factory manager and the overseer of various kind of game and sculpting projects. But here he is writing an article for White Dwarf about the various squad markings of the Ultramarines, and this was something that I found quite appealing. Not necessarily Ultramarines, I was never that taken with the Space Smurfs, but the kind of iconography and regimental designs, where you put your squad badges, where you do your helmet markings, the colorations and things. I used to kind of enjoy making those things up for my own chats, trying to make them interesting. Here's that very classic looking Ultramarine tactical squad, including the map pin back banners here that were not a part of the set. And here is Rick Priestley talking about the new Warhammer Fantasy Battles, trying to explain what's going on and how glorious it all is. And look at the look at the glory of it all. That kind of crossover moment when you've got the very recognisably 4th edition Empire troops that have been marking the coming of the new version up against the older dwarves here, and some older goblins range here. So this is explaining some of the differences between the combat and between the game systems, 3rd edition and 4th edition. And if you check out my Encyclopedia Warhammer videos that I did a while back, I think we stopped on 4th edition, and some people have asked me to go on forwards to 5th edition, and at some point maybe I will actually get around to doing that. Sorry, I haven't yet. Maybe keep asking me and it will happen at some point. But yes, discussed in quite a bit of detail the differences between 3rd and 4th edition. But basically, your combat is quicker, it's easier to hit people, and then combat resolution makes it easier for people to break, so you haven't got the push back and forth that you've got in 3rd edition. Psychology is stripped back easier, so you haven't got int, willpower and cool now. You've just got leadership, and everything's on leadership. You've got the artillery dice and the scatter dice that came out in Epic, now forming the basis of war machine firing. You've got the card based magic system, and you've got the sort of focus on special characters, which not so much in 3rd edition. You had your various levels of heroes, but everyone had a fairly generic profile, whereas now you've got named special characters that you can field alongside your armies, heralded of course by the move away from the central bestiary to the armies books, although you did get a complete battle bestiary with 4th edition, and the battle bestiary with 4th edition I think ranks alongside the Ravening Hordes free army lists that came out with 6th edition as being the kind of best collection of balanced army lists. If you're looking for things that aren't massively overpowered, those stripped down core lists I think are excellent for just regular balanced games against one another. We've also got a look at some Space Marine stuff here. The Battle for Golgotha, Yarrick versus Ghazghkull Thraka, which has been a feature of the last couple of issues of White Dwarf. This one late on in Yarrick's life, another sort of semi-historical based on events that are supposed to have actually happened in the 40k universe. But Yarrick mustering Imperial Guard and squat hordes against the orcs to try and defend Golgotha Prime. And here are those colourful battle report maps that Robin Drews was so keen on having. There's a great video, if you haven't seen it already, the Film Deg Miniatures interview with Robin Drews, where he talks about how important it was to have a battle report in each magazine so that people coming across it for the first time could work out what a game actually looked like. And then there are accounts with other members of the White Dwarf team talking about what a long-winded process that was, how long it took fighting a battle and then taking the notes and drawing the maps and putting it back into photography so that they could set up these still scenes. But worth it, I think, to give the kind of impression of how a game feels like, what it's actually like to play. Very important for a growing games company, a company that is now it's now a stock market company and is looking to generate profits and sell the thousands of boxed sets, plastic box sets that they must have had to produce, because it's really not worth producing small quantities of plastic figures. You have to produce them in vast quantities, which is why previously you've had things like the Crunch game reusing Blood Bowl plastics, the Mighty Warriors game reusing Advanced Hero Quest plastics, the Ultramarines game reusing Space Hulk plastics, that kind of thing, because Games Workshop had to buy these plastics in much bigger quantities than they could ever sell in those box games. So they had to produce more box games in order to sell the same figures and use up the surplus, but much cheaper than the metal production. Here's an heavy metal article on painting the heroes of the Empire that you can see here, some of whom classic figures. I think the Captain of the Reiksguard Knights. Well, I never know if it's Reiksguard or Reiksguard. I like it being Reek because it was obviously that play on smelling really bad, like yes, the reek of the reek. But I also appreciate that people would say Reich, because that's like the German Reichstag, right? So maybe it is Reich. Who knows? Anyway, still available. This guy from Games Workshop, or available again, although strikingly expensive, as you would expect. It's weird, isn't it? Some of their metal stuff that they've re-released for the old world, some of it is really reasonable. Dwarf Slayers, mega reasonable, couple of pounds a figure. Dwarf those Marauder Pikemen, frighteningly expensive. Why the difference between those two? I don't know. It's very strange. Anyway, here's another Warhammer article from Rick Priestley looking at Goblin Doom Divers. Very clearly making them not Night Goblin Doom Divers, or there is some confusion over this, because in the Orcs and Goblins Army book they are listed in one place as Night Goblin Doom Divers and in another place as Goblin Doom Divers, and in the army list it says that you can only take them if you've got a unit of regular or common goblins in your army. But there's a Rick Priestley army which doesn't have any common goblins, does have Night Goblins, and has Doom Divers. So, you know, there was some confusion over Doom Divers and where they were supposed to fit. I think they look very Night Goblin-y, so I have them in my Night Goblin army, but I appreciate that by the letter of the rules they are common goblins. Anyway, also known as Batwing Loonies, one of the very recognisable madcap things from Warhammer 4th edition, and here's the complete rules for using the crazy Batwing Loonies in your games. Here's a nice little issue guide to back issues of White Dwarf if you're looking for articles on Advanced Hero Quest, Battle for Armageddon, Blood Bowl, Chivalry, Confrontation. An essential reference for where you find all of the various parts of the Confrontation rules. Dark Future, Dragon Masters, Hero Quest, Mighty Empires, Modelling, Painting, Realm of Chaos, Space Crusade, Space Fleet, Space Hulk, Space Marine, Talisman, Troll Games, Warhammer 40,000 with its various factions, and Warhammer Fantasy with its various factions. And you can write for back issues if they have them in stock. And then we're in the catalogue pages. Warhammer, the Game of Fantasy Battles, $29.99 for 104 figures, plus rule books, plus templates, plus dice. Yeah, no way would anyone be able to do that. I don't know what a Warhammer Fantasy Old World box set is these days, £100 or so, or maybe they make the box sets cheaper so that you buy them and then you have to spend a fortune on other things later on. But yes, £30 for a set of Warhammer Fantasy Battle Starter sounds like a good deal to me. It sounded like a lot of money to me back in 1992, but it seems like a good deal to me now. And then we've got some army deals. So if you wanted to fight the Battle for Grimdor's Tomb from last edition, here's a special voucher or a special deal for picking up the figures in these photographs, including a single Kivlev Scout Archer, which comes for free. Lucky you get a free Kislev Scout Archer. Probably not very useful if you're looking for this to building a dwarf force. Just getting a free Kislev Scout is probably not very useful. The Bretonnian free command group is probably a better option, and this is quite nice. The Dwellers in the Mound here, because it involved the plastic skeletons from the Skeleton Horde set, which obviously they ordered in vast quantities. You got 3 sprues, so although that's 10 skeletons, that's actually 12 skeletons for £3, which is pretty good going. You wouldn't be able to pick those up for that now. Even regular plastic skeleton, like modern sprues, I don't think you'd pick up £1 a sprue. Maybe you would from some places. I can't think of any. Here we have the epic squat and orc stuff that features in the Battle for Golgotha. Those great Space Marine legacy armor variants, which come about pretty early in 40k. And the Night Goblins. Last month we looked at the sort of reduced range of these oh so iconic 4th edition Kev Adams Night Goblins, but now we've got the full set, but 2 variants of each Goblin Fanatics. We've got the variant sculpts of this guy with the spear, the variant sculpts of this guy walking with the bow, this guy firing the bow. I think this is still not actually the entire range. I think there are a couple of duplicates, a couple of variants of this guy with the spear, a couple of variants of this guy with the axe, and of course there was the later Goblin Shaman, who is slightly different to this one, but pretty much the full range of those iconic Night Goblins, along with the common goblins. And I never quite understood, so this Goblin with axe here is the same as this Night Goblin with axe here. Well, it's not the same. Obviously not the same. He's got a helmet on here, and his axe is a slightly different shape. And then here he's got a funky earring, but he doesn't have the big pointy cowl that the other Night Goblins have. I didn't really understand why this guy was branded as a Night Goblin, and this guy ended up being a common goblin. But there you go. Maybe they had enough figures in the common goblin range. This guy, I quite like to use him as a Night Goblin champion because he's got the pointy helmet. And silver helms and the high elves to go with your plastic elf bowman from the boxed set, which, as I say, probably nobody bought up. I think there is. So there's this goblin here. This goblin spearman looks very similar to the one from the box set, the plastic goblin. I don't know that there is, other than these Night Goblin archers that are quite significantly different because they're smaller than the plastic goblin archers. There doesn't seem to have been a regular goblin archer to match the plastic ones, but very much the case with these elves that these look an awful lot like the plastic ones. So not so much of an encouragement to go out and buy those, I guess, if you've already got the plastic ones. And here's a colourful spread on the back that features things like the what are they called? I can't remember. The orc robots in the shape of the Space Marines, and they did one in the shape of a squat and one in the shape of an Eldar as well. I can't remember what they're called, but nice to see them still in use towards the end of Rogue Trader. The old land speeder zooming up here. Otherwise, pretty much recognisable as what would become 2nd edition 40k very, very soon, after this excellent issue with its Dave Gallagher painting that ended up being used for Chronicles of War, I believe later on. So there we are, a flip through White Dwarf October 1992, when, as I say, I was 8 years old. And next week we're going to look at week after, probably the week after, next month we're going to look at some very special issues, because we have got, stepping back from the dawn of Warhammer 4th edition, the dawn of Warhammer 3rd edition, with the infamous Sabbat Flexi Disc. So join me next month for that. In the meantime, take care, and I'll see you again soon.